Billionaire left a $0 tip. What the single mom waitress found under his plate changed everything. The plates trembled in her tired hands the moment she lifted the one that would change her life forever, because only an hour before, she had watched the richest man who had ever walked into that quiet roadside diner walk out without even leaving a single dollar, and the sting of that insult still burned deeper than the ache in her feet. The day had already collapsed on her like a storm, the bills at home stacked like cliffs, the landlord's last warning echoing in her thoughts, and her son's medication bottle almost empty on the kitchen counter of the tiny apartment she fought so hard to keep. She had served the billionaire with all the care she had left, hoping the universe might show mercy for once. Instead, the receipt glared back at her like a slap. Total paid, tip, $0. And yet beneath that plate, hidden where no one else could see, waited something that would test her heart, her faith, and the way she understood kindness itself. If you believe that kindness still matters in this world, that second chances can arrive when you least expect them, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Honestia channel, because stories like these remind us we are never as alone as we think. Her name was Clara, and life had taught her how to survive on cracked sidewalks and fading hope. There had been a time when dreams filled her world like sunrise, when she believed love could hold everything together. Then love disappeared, leaving only the echo of promises and the responsibility of raising a fragile little boy named Eli all by herself. The hospital bills had multiplied after his first asthma attack. Work became her lifeline. Sleep became a luxury she could not afford. Every morning she walked through the diner doors before the sun rose, tying her apron like armor, pushing back tears because there was no space in her life for breaking down. She smiled at strangers, refilled coffees, pretended everything was fine while her own world kept shrinking. The billionaire appeared on a Tuesday afternoon when the sky looked tired and the air carried the dull heaviness of rain that refused to fall. News traveled fast through a small town. Some whispered that he owned half the skyline in another state. Others said he'd built empires out of cold numbers and boardrooms far above the suffering of ordinary people like Clara. When he stepped inside, conversations hushed, eyes followed him, and Clara was asked to serve him because she was steady, quiet, and never complained. She walked to his table carrying a menu with hands that shook only a little. She watched him with cautious curiosity, expensive watch, tailored coat, eyes that never rested on anything for long. He ate in silence. He barely looked up. She imagined the tip he might leave, imagined the grocery bag she could fill that night if the universe chose to be gentle. But when he stood and left, the receipt told a different story. 0. That number did not simply mean money. It felt like the world saying she was invisible, unworthy, expendable. The other waiters exchanged glances. Some shrugged because they had learned not to expect much from people who already had everything. Clara swallowed the pain like she swallowed burnt coffee at the end of every shift. Her manager barely noticed. Life continued. Plates clinked, orders shouted. And Clara returned to the table, defeated, preparing to clear it and move on. When she lifted the plate, something small, white, and folded caught her attention. A piece of paper tucked beneath, weighted by porcelain. Her first thought was frustration. Maybe he had left a note, maybe something cruel. Her chest tightened as she picked it up. She hesitated, then opened it carefully. Inside, she found words written in a deliberate, steady hand. They were not dramatic. They were simple. If you're reading this, please don't ask the manager. This is for you. Not deserved, not earned, but needed. Look in the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she realized there was something else under the napkin. Another envelope, hidden from sight. She slid it out, her heart pounding with suspicion and disbelief. She expected a joke, a business card, something meaningless. Instead, when she opened it, thick bills stared back at her. Not tens, not 20s, stacks. More money than she had ever held at once. She nearly dropped it. The world blurred. For a terrifying second, she thought she might faint right there in the aisle. She took a deep breath and refolded everything, tucking it safely into her apron. A wave of fear washed over her. Was it a mistake? A setup? Would someone accuse her of stealing? She worked the rest of her shift with the quiet intensity of someone carrying a fragile secret close to her skin. Every second felt like an hour. She imagined cameras. She imagined accusations. She imagined losing the job that kept her son breathing. But nobody came. Nobody asked. The billionaire never returned. The diner closed as night wrapped around the small town, and Clara walked home through streets softened by distant streetlights, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Inside her apartment, silence greeted her. Eli slept on the couch, his small chest rising with the faint wheeze she feared more than anything. She sat at the table and finally counted the money. It wasn't just generous. It was life-altering. Money for rent, for medication, for time, for time. She cried in the way people cry when they have been strong too long, shaking, silent, trying not to wake the world. She reread the note again and again. Why had he done this? Why had he pretended to leave nothing? The following days unfolded like cautious miracles. She paid the landlord, who raised his eyebrows but said nothing. She scheduled Eli's doctor appointments. She bought fresh food instead of canned. She even allowed herself the small luxury of new shoes, not out of vanity, but because her old pair had nearly split open. Yet guilt followed gratitude like a shadow. She had been taught that nothing comes without a price. She worried that the billionaire might reappear demanding it back. She worried the gift was some twisted experiment. And beneath all that worry lived another feeling, a soft whisper of hope. Weeks passed before she saw him again. He sat at the same table as if pulled there by some invisible thread. When she noticed him, her heart stumbled. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to ask why. But she also remembered the words in the note. This is for you. Don't ask. Oh. She approached quietly, served as always, and carried within her the secret gratitude of someone whose life had been nudged off the edge of despair. He never mentioned anything. He finished his meal, placed cash for the total, and left another empty tip line. Then he stood, nodded once in a distant, unreadable way, and disappeared. That night, Clara made a decision. Instead of chasing him, instead of breaking the rules of the gift, she began to honor it differently. She enrolled in evening classes. A program in bookkeeping at the community center, nothing glamorous but a step toward stability. She studied after her shifts while Eli slept, tracing numbers beneath the dim kitchen light, believing that maybe blessings come with responsibilities, not debts. She cut back on small indulgences, saved what remained of the envelope, and used every dollar with intention. Months later, their lives looked different. Not perfect, not magical, but stronger. The constant fear slowly loosened its grip. And then, unexpectedly, a letter arrived addressed to her in careful handwriting. No return name, only a simple instruction on the back. Please read when alone. Inside, the truth finally unfolded. The billionaire wrote about a life that once had meaning and then lost it. He wrote of a wife who had grown up poor, who never forgot the faces of waiters and cashiers and caregivers, who taught him that real wealth had nothing to do with numbers on a screen. She used to leave quiet gifts under plates, behind counters, at hospital desks, always insisting that people should receive without humiliation, without spectacle. After she passed away, he drifted, forgetting the warmth she carried. On the day he entered the diner, he had been hollow, angry at the emptiness of his world. Then he saw Clara, exhausted, kind despite the exhaustion, gentle with customers who barely noticed her. And for the first time in months, he wondered what his wife would have done. So he followed her example, the example. He left nothing on the line because he wanted the gift to feel private, sacred, unseen. At the bottom of the letter, a final sentence rested like a quiet promise, tell no one, live better. When you can, do the same. Not for me, not for thanks, but for the invisible hands you may one day hold up. Reading those words, Clara realized the gift had never truly been about money. It was about dignity, about belief, about passing forward the fragile thread of kindness without expectation. Time moved on. Clara finished her course, found work part-time in a small accounting office, and slowly reduced her hours at the diner. She donated anonymously to a single mother's fund at the clinic where she once stood trembling over unpaid bills. She left grocery bags on neighbors' doorsteps, never signing her name. Every act was a silent thank you to the woman she'd never met and the man who had remembered her through grief. And whenever she returned to that familiar corner table in memory, she felt no resentment for the $0 tip. Instead, she understood that sometimes the most meaningful gifts hide where our eyes cannot see. If this story reminds you that the world still carries quiet goodness, that hearts can heal, and generosity can ripple further than we imagine, then please, if it touched you, comment, share, and subscribe to Honestia so that more people can feel hope growing again in their own lives. Before we close, I want to ask you something special from the heart. Write in the comments what kindness means to you and how you hope to pass it forward, even in the smallest ways. And so, as Clara watched her son breathe easier as she paid each bill without fearing the future, she finally understood that miracles rarely arrive with fireworks, and they hide beneath plates, inside folded letters, in small choices made quietly by people who still believe in compassion. The billionaire never sought recognition, and she never sought to expose him. Instead, both of their lives were changed by a simple act meant to honor love. And that is how a moment that began with a stinging zero became a story of second chances, learning to receive with grace, and discovering that sometimes the greatest wealth is the chance to give again.